Welcome, hello, and howdy. In case you're new here, this is a supercut of all my videos in the Love Letter to Pikmin 1 series, and I have included chapters in case you want to skip to one specific area, but those standalone videos are still available too. Real quick, I want to thank you all for the support on my Pikmin videos. It's absolutely incredible to see, and I hope you all enjoy my complete Love Letter to Pikmin 1. I'm going to tell you all a short story. It begins with a small, awkward child receiving a brand new Nintendo GameCube and a handful of games that would go on to become legendary titles. Super Mario Sunshine and Metroid Prime, Animal Crossing and Smash Melee, and Pikmin. All games I enjoyed playing over and over again as a child and would go on to revisit many times as I got older. One of them, though, would take a very special place in my heart, and that is Pikmin. Playing it for the first time, I was confused and never really made it very far into the game until many years later. Little me was always scared of losing my Pikmin and was very combat averse, which, needless to say, is part of why I never got far. Even still, something about it stuck with me. The visuals, the sounds, the music. It all causes nostalgia to wash over me like a warm wave on a summer beach as I lay on the sand and marvel at the stars. This franchise, but specifically the first game, has become one of my absolute favorite games that I can always replay, right beside the likes of Persona 3 and Okami. I know I'm not alone in these feelings, and I hope you get the same feelings watching this video that I did while making it. Pikmin has an absolutely perfect opening screen. It sends a clear message that the game you're about to play takes place in a wild and beautifully unexplored locale. It's cute, playful, and animated in such a way that it's easy to get lost just looking at it. A very serene and inviting scene that's bookended by the exotic sound of the title music, making it almost meditative in nature. It doesn't feel like a start screen to a game. It feels much more organic. It feels like you're stepping into another world, and it's a testament to the design that a simple title screen can do that. But the actual main event is still ahead. Hakatate Freight, an interstellar shipping company based on the planet of the same name, Hakatate, shipping valuable resources and cargo all over in pursuit of profit and adventure. Olimar is the intelligent yet profoundly unlucky captain of the SS Dolphin. Today in particular is one that will forever alter Olimar's life and legacy as his beloved ship collides with an asteroid, sending him crashing down to the surface of the planet below him, PNF 404. A planet that, while familiar to us, is a terrifying and alien landscape to the tiny Olimar, overflowing with unknown dangers. With the debris and dust settled from the crash, we see that Olimar managed to survive, and we watch as he scrambles to his feet, diligently assessing the reality of the situation before him as he mourns the skeletal state of his ship. In the crash, many of the Dolphin's essential parts were broken off and thrown all over the unexplored planet, including its engine. While Olimar quickly accepts that he's stranded for the moment, he also notes that the atmosphere on PNF 404 isn't safe for him. It contains high levels of oxygen, which is poisonous to his Hakatation body. Realizing that his life support system only has 30 days of functionality left, our little hero stays optimistic and resolves that he will find his ship parts, repair the Dolphin, and make it back to his beloved wife, children, and career on Hakatate. As we gain control of Olimar, we're also greeted by a light and playful little tune that sets the stage for the journey ahead. It's slightly off and alien sounding, yet it has a friendly coziness to it. That coziness, however, is accompanied by a looming sense of urgency. This is not a friendly planet, beautiful and relaxing as it may be, which is why it's time for us to begin exploring and gathering information about our unfamiliar surroundings. After wandering for a moment and getting accustomed to how Olimar moves, we stumble upon something strange embedded in the ground. It's an onion-shaped object seemingly waiting for an intrepid explorer to bring it to life and restore the population of its inhabitants. As Olimar approaches, the object springs to life, becoming flush with color as the flower atop it blooms. This peculiar discovery gets more peculiar still as it sprouts legs and spits out from its flower a single seed. We watch as the seed burrows itself into the dirt and quickly grows into a long sprout. After inspecting it, we decide to try plucking it. What we're greeted by is none other than a sentient creature, a strange, plant-based life form that bears a striking resemblance to one of Olimar's favorite foods, Pick carrots. Noting that resemblance, he decides to dub these creatures Pikmin. Now, the game starts introducing you to what you'll be doing from here on out, introducing you to the core of Pikmin's gameplay, collecting. In this safe, time limit-free area, you get to experiment with the controls and learn how to survive. As soon as you throw that first Pikmin at the nearby pellet posy, it all makes sense. You see the Pikmin instinctively attack it, go into an idle state, and then begin hauling the pellet back to its onion to create more seeds. After gathering your new Pikmin, you begin to seek out more pellet posies to bolster the ranks of your growing army, scouring the landscape and gaining confidence in your abilities. Eventually, you pick the immediate area clean, and with more than 10 Pikmin at your disposal, you feel strong and not so alone. You feel ready to see more and notice a box nearby that's blocking your way towards new terrain. And thinking you have nothing to lose, you try to throw a Pikmin at it. Then another and another and another. Your Pikmin, now working together, manage to move the obstruction and reveal a hopeful sight, the engine of the SS Dolphin. Eager to start your repairs, you run towards it, throw your Pikmin, and expect the same result as before. But the number that pops up above the engine is 10 out of 20. You don't have enough Pikmin. So you begin to search around, find enough pellet posies to reach that lofty 20 Pikmin count, and haul your engine back to your ship. With the engine repaired and installed, we can use the ship to explore farther out from the impact site. More importantly, Olimar can now, at the very least, spend the nights in a low orbit on the Dolphin, safe from whatever nocturnal horrors stalk the darkness of PNF 404's nighttime. After a great many ordeals, Olimar makes a return visit to the site where his struggle began some days ago. Now armed with 3 different varieties of Pikmin, we're equipped with everything needed to finally pick this area clean of both ship parts and resources. Things are not quite the same this time around, though. Having been tested by the days spent surviving with your Pikmin through bloody battles and difficult situations, you look at the scenery with different eyes. The calm and safe atmosphere of this place now just seems to you like a cruel joke, a facade meant to trick any unwary wanderer into thinking this planet is a paradise of tranquility, rather than the brutal and savage place it actually is. Even still, you take deeper breaths and relax as you send your Pikmin around the familiar surroundings to gather pellet posies before you proceed. Having picked the area clean again, you begin making your way towards and across the bridge to the interior of the tree stump. What you see here is that after 8 days on PNF 404, 2 creatures share this wooden husk alternatingly. One is a huge, intimidating creature that is actually rather peaceful and wishes you no harm. The other is the opposite. A large, fluid-based monstrosity that resembles a slug but with far less solid form. It's aggressive and potentially dangerous, but thankfully it's slow and not much of a threat compared to most enemies that Olimar has had to overcome so far. After dispatching the disturbance, you take advantage of the yellow Pikmin and their ability to use bomb rocks. Using their produce-powered bombs, the stone wall in the tree trunk falls. Finally, after 8 long days, the entirety of this place has been unlocked to you. What awaits is water. A still, quiet pool of water, filled with pearly clamps resting on the sand mounds. The only other part here, according to your radar, is being held by one of these creatures, which means that Olimar and his Pikmin are heading into battle again. With good sense and timing, all of the clamps in the pool fall to your army, and you reclaim the final part here, the positron generator, an apparent power source that Olimar mentions he uses to heat up his instant space noodles, which makes it a truly essential component. With that, all of our business is done here. We bid a final farewell to the impact site and take to a bittersweet orbit for the night. Knowing we're one step closer to getting home, Olimar will savor his instant space noodles tonight. The impact site is a fantastic first area to have. It's small, welcoming, and safe, and it has an unbeatable atmosphere that teaches you just about everything you need to know about the basics of the game. Or rather, it almost does. Personally, I would have loved if they had included a small look at combat on the first visit here. Maybe something like a scripted fight with a single dwarf Bulborb, or maybe a male Sheargrub. It's not anything major for sure, just a personal thing. We do somewhat get a glimpse of combat mechanics with the iridescent flint beetle we encounter, but that's not really a good representative sample of actual combat. This area also introduces us to some of the less well-aged mechanics of Pikmin 1, such as Pikmin randomly tripping and taking forever to stand up and try to catch up to you. More notably though, this little bridge foreshadows something we're going to be dealing with a lot later on. And that's how messy Pikmin are to control in the game. In later games, Pikmin would get better and better at keeping themselves on platforms and bridges. But here, there is no attempt from them. You can use the swarm ability to try and keep them in line as you cross bridges and platforms, but you almost always end up losing a few anyway. And it can be pretty frustrating, especially if you're trying for a personal best or a speedrun or something. I can imagine a newcomer to the game being very frustrated by this difficulty with keeping the Pikmin under control, but it's still not too much of a major issue. All in all, the impact site, at least on your initial visit, is a well-designed place. It lets you get used to things at your pace, teaches you the game's mechanics in an organic way that isn't too overbearing, and it feels satisfying. The second visit to the impact site does feel a lot less gratifying though. While it feels good to be able to come back and fully explore this starting area, what you're greeted with is underwhelming. You can encounter the Mamuta or Gulix here if you're past the 8-day mark, and it's neat that they included optional bosses that alternate days, but beyond them there's nothing really interesting here. I do understand it was meant first and foremost as a tutorial area, but more could have been included here. Taking down that stone wall should have been a big moment where a rewarding environment should have been. Not to say it needed to be bigger and more elaborate, just more interesting. The only part of the impact site you have to return to explore, and it's just a small and empty beach with some clamps on it. It also tends to feel like a wasted day. Given that you're probably at the point where you have blue Pikmin, you're probably well versed enough in Pikmin gameplay that doing everything here probably will only take half a day. Without many things of value left to grab or do, your choices are either just wait and do nothing, or end the day really early. That's generally all the criticism I have for the area though, and there are a few other points to talk about before I wrap this up. The visuals, though admittedly crunchy and dated even in the remaster, are still beautiful in their own way. This really was a showcase for how the GameCube could pump out some truly stunning visuals, at least for the time. You all know though, I couldn't end this without mentioning the music again. The entire soundtrack for Pikmin is something I'll go on about quite a bit throughout this series of videos, and the Impact Site has a track that just lights up my brain every time. As soon as the first few notes are played, I'm taken right back to sitting on my bed, chewing on the cord of my controller like it's black licorice, wandering around with my Pikmin and being too afraid to lose my new friends in combat. The same can be said of just the sound effects of the menus, the erratic flying of the SS Dolphin on the area select screen, all the sounds the Pikmin make. It is all a delicious nostalgia sandwich for me, and I'm so happy I get to share that sandwich with you. Hello, dear friends and enemies, I'm Sugarwater, and it's time to head back to the tiny world of Pikmin 1. Today we're going to an absolutely iconic Pikmin locale, the Forest of Hope. Having made some unlikely allies and having survived the night, we decide to use the Dolphin's restored mobility to explore more of PNF 404. We set our sights on a potential landing site in an area that, at first glance, isn't too different from our crash site. We decide to land here, and Olimar dubs the location the Forest of Hope. We set down successfully in a small clearing. It's walled off from the rest of the area and should provide an isolated place for us to plan our next move. At least, until we have to bring those walls down. The Pikmin's onion lands with us, and we gather up our leafy army as our first real day begins. The Forest of Hope is where the game truly begins for us. We now have a day meter in the top of the screen, limiting our activities to about 13 real-world minutes per day. The game greets you on your first day by showing you some of the other things that Pikmin can do. It walls you in here, making you naturally curious about how to get out and how to get moving. This way, even if you tried to throw Pikmin at the stone wall to no avail, without actively thinking about it, you'll come to the conclusion that the bramble wall must be the correct route. You throw or swarm your Pikmin, and sure enough, they're getting to work. I love this design so much. It guides you so naturally by limiting you to only 2 options, which guarantees that you won't feel too overwhelmed or frustrated when one of them doesn't work, because you just try the other one. This little bit of thoughtful design also introduces you to the jingle you hear when Pikmin complete a task. This can be heard no matter where you are in relation to those Pikmin, really encouraging an efficiency-first approach, since you'll know you can go off and do other things and still know that when that wall's been taken down, it'll tell you. Maybe I'm just easily impressed, but I love it. I still get so much serotonin when I hear it go off. Let's get into the adventure proper, though. Thanks to the hard work of the Pikmin, the bramble is cleared and we can venture out to see what this forest has to offer us. One final pass of our small landing area leads us to find this patch of grass. The Pikmin instinctively pluck the grass and find this nectar-like substance, which, when consumed, causes the Pikmin's leaves to bloom into flowers. It's truly a beautiful and mysterious sight. As much as Olimar wants to study this phenomenon, we must keep moving. Upon venturing out of the landing area, we see more of PNF 404's fauna. As we marvel at its strange form, it notices us, and it is not friendly. It beelines for our Pikmin and starts chomping down on them at an alarming pace for its small size. We have no choice but to fight, and Olimar frantically throws the Pikmin at it, landing a critical hit on its vulnerable back, felling the beast. While we take a moment to collect ourselves, the Pikmin take a moment to collect the creature's body. They begin hauling it back to their onion, and just like the pellet posies before, the onion absorbs the creature and produces more Pikmin seeds. This leads us to wonder, what is the true nature of these Pikmin? What is their life like in the absence of a traveler like Olimar? We shake off these thoughts and press on, the looming urgency
pressing down on us. We gather up the pellet posies around us to shore up our numbers before we continue. Now we know we will need all the Pikmin that we can get. We head a little farther from our base and take out a few more of those small hostile creatures and notice two things a little farther away. One is a part to our ship, and the other is a huge slumbering creature that resembles the smaller hostiles. We will have to engage it if we want to move around safely. We head for the ship part first. As we know, at the very least, the ship part won't try to eat us. As we get closer, Olimar tells us it's the eternal fuel dynamo, an endless energy source for the dolphin. If that isn't essential, I don't know what is. We call enough of our Pikmin over, and our fuel dynamo is on its way home. While it's encouraging to see the part get placed back into our ship, that huge creature haunts our thoughts. It's time to face it. As our clock chimes noon, we make our approach. As we stare, Olimar decides to dub the fearsome-looking beast a Bulborb, and the smaller variants as dwarf Bulborbs. Thinking the same tactics would be effective, Olimar throws Pikmin at the Bulborb, but to our terror, it's unfazed and begins devouring mouthfuls of our Pikmin. We need to retreat for a moment and make an escape. After we calm our nerves, it's time for a different approach. We decide to use the element of surprise to our advantage and swarm the slumbering creatures back. This tactic appears effective, and it falls with minimal problems, providing replenishment to our numbers. Another bramble wall gets taken down, and we are met with the realization that these Bulborbs are plentiful, and getting used to fighting them is just a fact of life that we need to adapt to, and fast. Another dwarf Bulborb and a full-size Bulborb down, and what is that? We see a familiar shape in the dirt nearby, and we think to ourselves, could it be? We approach, and sure enough, the onion springs to life in the same fashion as before, though this one is a brilliant yellow. After plucking the sprout, we realize that Pikmin are far more complicated and diverse creatures than we first thought. Before us is a yellow Pikmin. It's missing the nose of the reds, but instead has large ears and appears rather aerodynamic and light. First things first, we make more of this new Pikmin type and try throwing it, and sure enough, they fly high and far. Now though, we have a dilemma. Only stone walls remain in our path in every direction, and we can't destroy those. Or can we? Noticing these glowing rocks that have been littered around, we throw Pikmin at them. At first, they don't do anything with them, but when we throw yellow Pikmin, they pick up the rocks. Since we've exhausted all other ideas, Olimar throws the Pikmin holding rocks at the wall. The Pikmin drops it and instinctively runs away. Suddenly, the rock explodes with a resounding boom. It definitely damaged the wall, which means we have our way forward. As the Pikmin demolish the wall, we take note that these bombs, we'll simply call them bomb rocks, can probably be used against hostile creatures as well. It's also safe to assume that any Pikmin caught in the blast will also die, so care is going to be needed when handling these. With the wall out of the way, we see a few dwarf Bulborbs and our whimsical radar. If we can retrieve that, we'll be able to find our ship parts much easier. Our Pikmin get to work with some well-aimed throws, and we reinstall the radar. The day is ending now, and darkness is approaching. We need to gather our Pikmin and ensure none are left behind as we head into orbit. Any stragglers would most certainly become prey for nocturnal predators. With another day over, Olimar has hope growing inside him. If we can keep this pace, we can survive and make it off of this planet. This is where the game really starts to test you on what you've learned, and it makes you feel great when you overcome each obstacle. The game gives you the opportunity to get used to combat with just one small but still dangerous enemy, and it really drives into you the fact that you and your Pikmin are still fragile. You have numbers and teamwork that can take out the biggest of threats, but you're also fragile enough individually that even a small threat can easily cut your numbers down. You aren't the predator here. You're thoroughly the prey. This encounter also makes you aware that if you fight smart, you can be a very effective survivor. The game then ramps that up considerably only a few steps later with the much larger threat of a Bulborb. If you're a new player, you're not gonna know how to tackle this. You're gonna try and throw Pikmin and likely get a few mouthfuls of them killed. But Pikmin rewards tactical thinking, and if you go around back and hit them with all you've got, you might be able to take them out before they can even stand up. The only design so far that I take issue with is the Bomb Rock's introduction. It does a well enough job of introducing them that mechanic, but a bigger hint in that direction would have been nice since there's really no obvious indication that only yellow Pikmin specifically can handle explosives. However, I think it does succeed in making the player feel more clever doing it the way that it does. So there's pros and cons to that design decision, if you're asking me. There's still a lot left to see in the forest though. With a new day dawning and our successful exploration yesterday still fresh in our minds, it's time for Olimar to head back down to the Forest of Hope. As we and our Pikmin descend, a day of infinite potential awaits. A new day on the surface begins, and Olimar's first order of business is to harvest more nectar from the grass in our base. Olimar had noticed that after flowering, our Pikmin have become far more efficient, faster, stronger, and more coordinated than their leafy brethren. Having given our army an advantage, we set out and begin collecting bomb rocks for any trials that await. As we explore, we notice that the area is eerily empty. All the hostile wildlife that we fought off on our first visit are still gone. For how long, Olimar is unsure, but for the moment, we can work in peace. Though peace is never lasting on PNF 404. Approaching an unexplored part of this area, we hear a quiet burrowing, and suddenly the ground erupts. What emerges is a number of rather off-putting creatures that crawl on the ground like maggots. Olimar notes that the white female creatures are harmless, whereas the purple males are aggressive and can easily shear a Pikmin in half with its razor-sharp pincers. With this in mind, we decide to name them shear rubs. They're a lot like our Pikmin in that individually they're not much of a threat, but had there been more male shear grubs, we might have incurred far more losses. Regardless, the threat is neutralized and we can destroy the stone wall ahead. Behind the wall, we can find a part of our ship, but our experience has made us more cautious. Olimar needs to secure the area before we leave our Pikmin defenseless as they haul the part. Another Bulborb sleeps in our path, but our tactics and experience make short work of them. We decide to split our forces, one squad working on a bramble wall, while Olimar takes the other group to demolish the nearby stone wall. As the Pikmin work, we have a few precious moments to reflect and take in our surroundings. As we pacify more of the hostile creatures in the area, it becomes increasingly peaceful, a moment of reprieve in this never-ending storm. The black bramble is tougher than the others and takes more time, but eventually it falls and we can press on. Yet more Bulborbs and Dwarf Bulborbs stand in our path, but with well-aimed throws and using bomb rocks, they're no threat. Behind them, we find the Nova Blaster, a weapon that apparently can fire blasts that destroys stars and bends space-time, or so the brochure claimed. We begin hauling it and head back to our other part, the Extraordinary Bolt. Based on what we can gather, it seems Olimar was scammed into buying this seemingly functionless ship part, but it's a ship part nonetheless, so we might as well retrieve it. At the very least, we can admire its extraordinary size. With these parts recovered, we can now expand our search area and fly farther. Perhaps a new destination awaits us. First things first though, with Pikmin unable to swim, we've recovered all the parts we can, so it's time to gather the spoils of war. We examine our Pikmin numbers and decide how to divide up the bodies of our fallen enemies, selectively replenishing and reinforcing our Pikmin's numbers for the battles ahead. With our business concluded, we take once again to orbit for the night and plan our route to a new area tomorrow morning. Sadly, there isn't much I have to say about the second day here. A few new things are introduced in the black bramble walls, and the fact that Pikmin begin to drown if you come in contact with water. The second day for me is a fantastic reinforcement of the mechanics of the first day that encourages you to experiment with bomb rocks and battle tactics in a relatively low-stakes environment. The next time we venture here is going to be far, far different though. Our first visit here, now a memory, we return far more prepared. Our ship is better equipped, and we have another very potent tool at our disposal, the blue Pikmin. On our adventures elsewhere, Olimar encountered these Pikmin in water, an element that for all other Pikmin spells death and pain. With their capabilities, there is no place inaccessible to us in the Forest of Hope, which means we can begin the final stages of collecting here. We start this day again harvesting nectar, as flower Pikmin are essential for our success. Unfortunately for us, it seems hostile life has once again taken up residence here, but they fall easily to our now battle-hardened Olimar. Taking our blue Pikmin, we begin demolishing a bramble wall in a small puddle of water, and we wait. With that out of the way, we reunite with our other Pikmin and begin taking down the black bramble blocking our path. And as we do, we observe a huge and imposing creature on the other side. Not wanting to worry, Olimar takes some time to play with the jelly-like nectar and take a few breaths. With the wall down, we begin battle with the huge beetle-like beast that Olimar dubs the Armored Cannon Beetle. Despite its size, the beetle falls quickly, the air intake valve on its head proving to be its undoing. Behind it waits another ship part, the radiation canopy. It seems Olimar has been absorbing cosmic radiation with no complaints so far, but it's probably a good thing for his health that we recovered this. With a moment to take stock of things, we can check our radar, unclench our jaw, and prepare ourselves to continue on. It's time to cross into new territory with our blue Pikmin, and almost immediately we're greeted by another ship part, the shock absorber, and a slumbering Bulborb. This poses a small problem as we only have blue Pikmin with us, and Olimar's observation over the days has concluded that blue and yellow Pikmin aren't as strong in combat as their red counterparts. Yellows can at least use bomb rocks to even the odds, but blue Pikmin don't even have that. We decide to wait and instead head over to investigate a pile of sticks by a small pond. It's guarded by a family of sheargrubs, but even with the blues' combat disadvantage, the sheargrubs don't provide much resistance. As we bring our Pikmin closer to investigate, they begin to build using the materials. The Pikmin seem to instinctively understand basic problem solving and construction, a skill that Olimar is certain will be invaluable in the coming days. If we can build this bridge, we'll be able to cross the water with our other colors of Pikmin. And more importantly, they can help retrieve what awaits on the other side, another ship part. Making our way through the pond with the blues, we encounter small, tadpole-like creatures that we'll call Wollywogs. They don't appear hostile or dangerous, so we can leave them alone for now. With the bridge finished, we find Olimar's Sagittarius, a ship part that isn't mechanically essential, but emotionally is massive for Olimar. His son gave him this as a gift, and in the harsh and dire circumstances, the Sagittarius brings Olimar comfort as he dreams of making it back to his son on Hakatate. With a little more exploring, we find a family of Bulborbs and dwarf Bulborbs blocking our would-be path. We take them out and decide that, with time running short today, it's best to finish up and save what remains for our final visit to the Forest of Hope. Our final descent into the Forest of Hope, a thought that is both comforting and worrying. From here on, we'll have to begin venturing into even more dangerous and unknown territory. For now, though, we focus on our remaining ship parts. We throw our red Pikmin up to the ledge where we found the shock absorber before, and make our way up and around to join them. They make short work of the Bulborb, and that only leaves one final ship part in the Forest of Hope. The Bulborbs we cleared out last night are still gone, and with some maneuvering, our Pikmin move this box off our path. The end of our time here is in sight, but our ship part isn't. The radar says that it's here, but where? The ground begins to shake and a horrifying creature erupts. A massive fusion of snake and bird arises and begins plucking up our Pikmin without any hesitation. Its body appears very tough, but with well-aimed throws, Olimar can get Pikmin onto its tender head to inflict damage. We can do this. Our optimism is shattered though, as another of these beasts springs from the ground and begins assaulting our Pikmin. This battle has become a war. We struggle and take the first one down as it makes a final cry. The other one isn't going to wait for us to recover though, so the war continues. Some of our beloved Pikmin are lost, but we finally won. However, our peace is shattered yet again, as another of these terrors emerges from the ground, hungry and agitated. Our Pikmin's numbers continue to fall as we fight through this final encounter and find the ship part we had been searching for. We recover the Geiger counter, a radiation monitor that Olimar evidently ignores frequently, despite its near-constant attempts to alert him to radiation. Our bloody war behind us, we name the digging monstrosities burrowing snaggerets. They truly gave us an experience that Olimar will never forget. We collect as much of the spoils of battle as we can and head back to our ship. With that, our mission here is now complete. We take one last look down as we make it into our safe orbit. That's another area down, and our return home is starting to be within reach. The Forest of Hope might just be my favorite place in all of Pikmin 1. For me, this is the quintessential Pikmin area that I think of anytime Pikmin is brought up. The music that greets you is iconic and perfect for the area. The visuals are enjoyable in the remaster and the original, and it really sells that this isn't just a level in a game. No, this is a habitat. This is a place where life goes on even when you're not there to see it or take part in it. It feels organic and peaceful, just as much as it feels terrifying and unknown. This is also where we really start to see remnants of humanity in the debris, and it also gives us an idea of just how small Olimar, the Pikmin, and our adventure really is. It gives you that vague sense that you're exploring in a world that's made for things much larger than you, and it creates a unique sensation of anxiety. Of course, we know there's no humans in Pikmin games, but it still plants the seed in our mind that what if a human were to just stumble upon us? Or more likely, the first thought you have is, where are the humans? That's a talking point for another time though. From your first real taste of freedom to encountering the terror of the Snagret nest for the first time, the Forest of Hope is Pikmin. This area tells you everything about Pikmin in a natural way, and it's a joy to be in while it teaches you. With that, we've talked about the impact site and the Forest of Hope, and don't worry, the other areas will be following soon enough. We've come so far in such a short amount of time, conquering the challenges before us alongside Olimar and the Pikmin. It's time to face even more fears and dive into another area of PNF 404, an area overflowing with dangers both from the hostile creatures and from the environment itself. It's time for the Forest Navel. Having done all we can for now in the Forest of Hope, we set down in a far darker and more oppressive location. Olimar checks his radar immediately to get an idea of the land and where we need to head to, and designates this new environment the Forest Navel. First things first, Olimar begins exploring the environment without the Pikmin. He'd rather know what's coming before he drags his army into unknown dangers. We see darkness, a bleak color palette, and a notable lack of the lush greenery we've become accustomed to, and in its place is water, geysers, and rock formations. We do spot a familiar sight, however, and make a beeline for it. Sure enough, it's another onion, this time in a lovely blue color and surrounded by water. Same as before, the onion flushes with color and comes to life, offering us a new seed and with it a new type of Pikmin. We pluck the sprout as soon as possible and find this Pikmin type has no nose or ears, but instead a mouth and gills. It's actually able to brave water without any issues, which means our capabilities just expanded tremendously. We waste no time and get to making more blue Pikmin. This is an incredible find, one that all but guarantees our success in recovering all of our ship parts, provided we can survive what lies ahead. This short time without worry as we build our blue Pikmin's numbers in this safe pool provides much needed relief from the otherwise claustrophobic pressure of the Forest Navel. It's hard not to wonder, as we watch our Pikmin work, what kinds of horrible life forms call a place like this home? Our question is answered only a moment later as we spy a very strange and oddly endearing creature waddling its way around. It resembles other grub dogs, but doesn't appear hostile, so we leave it alone, as we don't have numbers for a fight right now. As we explore with our blue Pikmin, we pass by some pebbles that the Pikmin begin digging up. To our surprise, nectar begins to pop out. It's never a bad idea to have more flower Pikmin, so Olimar lets the Pikmin have their way, allowing them to drink up the enriching liquid. We take a shortcut back to our base, intending to even out our Pikmin colors and get prepared for proper exploration. The grub dog we spotted earlier seems to be enjoying the peace of our base as well. After observing its odd form a little longer, we name it a breadbug. It does, after all, look a bit yeasty. Having balanced our team while still leaving room for more blue Pikmin, we set our goal on taking out this nearby bramble wall so we can have easier access to our base. While harvesting some pellets for our blues, a pile of wood catches our eye, as does the ship part that lies opposite the pile. We swarm our Pikmin to it, and like we hoped, they begin building a way across this gap. It doesn't seem that Olimar will be able to cross with them, but he can still safely guide them down. We've found Olimar's automatic gear, a part that he describes in a way that leaves us with more questions about its function, but it's a ship part regardless. Leaving that to our Pikmin, we venture a little farther with our remaining team and encounter a new offshoot of sheargrubs. These off-putting variants have wings and try to fly away and recover when injured, making these a slightly more strategic affair than their landlocked counterparts. Thankfully, they don't pose much of a danger now, and their small numbers means we can take them out rather quickly. We decide to hold off on collecting bodies in favor of some more exploration. Olimar skirts past these large gray creatures and scopes out more of the area near our base. The Pikmin place the automatic gear back into the dolphin just as we start to head back to check on them. Our part count now going up to 6 out of 30. After gathering up our army, we take just the blue Pikmin to collect the bodies from earlier and further boost their numbers. We need to be able to take as many blue Pikmin with us as possible when we head into more dangerous waters. We take a moment to look around the area where we found the onion and see a ship part just down a ledge and in a pool, which means it's a perfect chance to take advantage of our new aquatic capabilities. Olimar heads to the blue onion to round up all of our blue Pikmin. We throw them down the ledge and grab a few yellows to make use of the bomb rocks also below us. We separate the blues and yellows and head to the part. Olimar tells us it's the #1 Ionium jet, a powerful source of propulsion with a powerful exhaust smell to match. We send it on its way back to our ship thanks to the blue Pikmin, and send our yellows and leftover blues up the stick to the ledge above. We've got bomb rocks to use now. We gather our Pikmin as the Ionium jet gets installed back into the dolphin, and plan out where to use bomb rocks first. We decide on this black stone wall by our base, opening up a new route for Olimar and the Pikmin. Time is running short now, so we gather all of our Pikmin and prepare for another night in orbit. The Forest Navel always scared the hell out of me as a kid. It's such a different vibe than the rest of the game and drastically different than the first 2 areas. The music is strange, kind of alien, and really unsettles you in a whimsical sort of way that's oddly perfect. The first little chunk of this area does a good job of telling you what blue Pikmin are all about with just the fact that you find the blue onion in water, something that until now was to be avoided at all costs. It reinforces this new mechanic pretty well with the nearby ship part too, letting you use blue Pikmin for the first time in a safe-ish environment. It brings sticks and geysers into the equation well enough too, placing the pile of sticks directly across from a ship part just out of reach. It makes you immediately think, okay, the Pikmin have to be able to do something here. The only problem I have so far, and there will be others later, is the ridiculous number of stone walls. While yes, most of them are optional, it also just feels like a little bit of overkill having to destroy so many stone walls with limited bomb rocks, and having to build a few things on top of that to fully open the paths. It does feel pretty good when you finally get around to getting them all down, but it doesn't feel that worth it, since by the time you do that, there probably won't be much left to do here. For now though, there's quite a bit left to get into. Setting down for our second day here, Olimar resolves that it's time to explore more of the bleak darkness that surrounds us. We take out our yellow and red Pikmin and set off. It's time to take on those strange gray creatures from earlier, so we have our yellows hang back and take our strongest fighters forward. Swarming the beast inflicts a lot of damage, but it throws off the Pikmin, and to our shock, it begins spewing flames onto us and our Pikmin. But it appears that the red Pikmin are miraculously unfazed by the fire and fight on. Olimar takes some damage from the flames, but our reds are injury-free. Armed with this new information, and no reason to fear these creatures anymore, we take our Crimson Army onward to clear the area of the flame spitters that Olimar names Fiery Blowhogs. After thinning their numbers rather easily, we approach one by the water, and as we engage, we draw the attention of a water-dwelling creature. It takes flight before crashing down in an attempt to crush both Olimar and the Pikmin. This battle becomes much more frantic now, and we incur some losses, but prevail in the end. As we approach the final fiery blowhog, we notice that the bread bug from before is trying to steal our spoils. Olimar has a Pikmin grab hold of the pellet, and they begin a tug of war, the bread bug getting dragged along back to the onion. Before we follow, we take out that final blowhog. Our Pikmin get to work hauling the many bodies back to base, and as Olimar follows, we see the bread bug making an escape. Seizing the opportunity to take out a weakened enemy, with a precise toss of a Pikmin, we strike a killing blow on it. We're amazed to find a ship part falling out of the defeated creature, this one being the space float. Evidently, Olimar isn't very good at swimming in space, and this device helps, somehow. We gather our Pikmin together and build 2 slopes nearby to make our back and forth much easier. Then we send our space float on its way to the ship. Upon exploring a bit deeper, we engage in a fight with a family of sheargrubs and shearwigs, but we're joined again by the same creature that crushed our Pikmin earlier. Once again, a simple fight becomes a bit more dire and difficult as we scramble to regain control of the situation. About a dozen Pikmin are lost, but we come out of the battle as the victors. With daylight running out, the rest of the day is spent gathering up enemy bodies, pellet posies, and mentally preparing for an even deeper exploration tomorrow morning. As far as the second day goes, there's only one thing I really have to say, and that is that I love bread bugs. It's such a fun little novelty of an enemy that I'm really happy came back so hard in later games. The little tug of war that you have to do with these little guys is always a nice, silly little distraction from the otherwise escalating battles. Like, how can you not love this? I wish I was a loaf of bread. The days ahead of us are sadly devoid of silly distractions and filled with struggle, death, and stress. Another day begins in the forest navel, and we set off promptly with all of our Pikmin colors in tow. Olimar spots a fiery blowhog that we missed in our initial sweep. It's in a small area next to water and seemingly guarding a bramble wall. The close quarters and proximity to water mandates that we handle this encounter with care, lest our red Pikmin get flung into the water nearby. With the blowhog gone, all of our Pikmin start on the arduous task of demolishing the black bramble wall. After some anxious waiting in the oppressive darkness of this rocky landscape, that wall falls and Olimar realizes that this entire place is dangerous, environment and all. Maneuvering our Pikmin around the flame-spewing geysers, we set them to work on a bridge. Their sheer numbers make fairly quick work of it, and we're met with a bit of a tricky situation. First, we must unclog the geyser in a pool of water so Olimar can get up to that ledge. Next is taking advantage of their aerodynamics and throwing some yellow Pikmin up onto the ledge. After Olimar is up too, we can see the ship part promised by our radar. After our yellows bring it down, we call them off and throw our reds on the job. Since they're immune to fire, they can safely bring the part back to the ship without worrying about the flame geysers on the path. Olimar tells us that this, much like the Sagittarius before, isn't an essential part but was a gift from his daughter. He takes a moment and wonders what she's up to back home on Hakatate, but with the day already half over, we need to remain focused. Heading a little farther up the path, we're met with a dead end and a ship part sitting in a pool. Though we have a stick-in geyser here, to get that part back safely, we'll need to haul it out with our blues, and have our reds take it back through the fire. As we approach it, Olimar informs us that it's his analog computer, a device that he describes very vaguely due to his own vague knowledge of what it actually does. We can't help but wonder how many of these parts are actually essential, and how many of them Olimar has simply been told were essential. Regardless, it's coming back with us. Or so we'd like, but we don't have enough blue Pikmin to haul it out of the water. After some brief backtracking, we get it out of the water and safely on its way to the ship. Upon returning to base, we decide to tackle the deeper waters of the area and summon a full party of blue Pikmin. As we tread into the water, we see more of those pale, crushing critters. Olimar gives them the name Wallyhops, and we start our long battle. We take out one quickly, waiting until it hits the ground and anchoring it with our Pikmin. It works, however, it gets one last hop in and takes a good chunk of our Pikmin with it. Finding some success with the swarming, we repeat this tactic but call our Pikmin back before it can go airborne again, which successfully minimizes casualties, and that's another Wallyhop down. On a small patch of land, we find the anti-dioxin filter and learn from Olimar that it filters all the toxins from the dolphin's exhaust. minimizing its environmental impact. We waste no time in getting it hauled back to shore and have our blues clean up the treasures of battle to replenish their damaged numbers. As Olimar wanders, he spots a ship part up on a small ledge. A task for tomorrow, sadly, as the sun is rapidly setting. We leave the anti-dioxin filter on the shore for easy retrieval tomorrow morning and head to orbit. This day 3 is a stressful and frustrating one, especially for new players. Not knowing you should have all 3 Pikmin types, or at the very least the 2 required types when you head past that bramble wall, can lead to frustrating backtracking and lost time. The same goes for the ship part farther up and not having enough blue Pikmin. The forest navel has always felt a bit off to me. It feels almost like it's from a different stage of development with its approach to mechanics and even the design of the whole place. That being said, I really enjoy when Pikmin makes you use your head a little and manage all 3 Pikmin types to accomplish things. Sadly, that's only really used like 3 times in the first game, with most other puzzles in the game being solved with only 2 Pikmin types. None of this is necessarily a bad thing though, considering that 3D game design and level design in general was still a very young art at the time. The 2 hardest days here still lie ahead, filled with things that terrified little Sugarwater to no end. We start our day in the forest navel by plucking out some of the blue Pikmin we left in the ground overnight. It's fascinating that when they're planted, they're left alone by predators, even overnight. We gather our forces and set out for a productive day. Heading right for the part we left on the shore last night, we get it on its way. Next, we head on over to that ledge Olimar discovered before we left yesterday, throwing enough Pikmin up there to efficiently build a bridge down. We get up to the ship part and learn that it's called the gravity jumper, a crucial component in making the jump to super light speed. This seems pretty important despite appearing to just be a giant spring. With 2 ship parts recovered before noon, we're off to a pretty good start today. Now though, we're off to unexplored territory. First, we stock up on bomb rocks and then build a bridge to get back up this ledge. Olimar starts demolishing some more of the walls in the area so we can easily get around, and as the Pikmin work, we start to form a plan of action. A few bomb rocks and radar check later, we decide to first go for the part in this small valley, and this part of the forest navel is mighty mysterious. It's covered in bioluminescent mushrooms and fire geysers, though otherwise it's pitch black, and we see something that looks like a living mushroom waddling around. If Olimar was a betting man, he'd surely go all in on that creature having one of our parts. We first try throwing a bomb rock at it, but astoundingly it has almost no effect. So we resort to the ever-reliable tactic of swarming the enemy. The Pikmin knock it off balance and it rolls onto its head, revealing its vulnerable underbelly. We throw as many Pikmin as we can before it gets back up and inflict some good damage on it. Once it regains its composure, it releases this cloud of spores that we'd best avoid. We take down the creature without incident and find our bet to be correct. It had a ship part. This piece is called the Omega Stabilizer, and in addition to being important for navigation, Olimar just likes its aesthetic. Understandable. We head to the last ship part on the radar and we're met with absolute terror as this massive, long-legged biomechanical creature comes slamming down onto us. It wastes no time in stomping on a group of our Pikmin as we scramble to regain our composure. Though we lose quite a few Pikmin, we make careful throws and eventually its body starts to come apart before finally falling to our assault. The final ship part of the navel is before us, the Guard Satellite, which functions exactly like you'd think, orbiting the dolphin and helping keep Olimar and the ship safe. The problem here is that we are out of daylight, which means we sadly will have to come back one more time just to retrieve this part. The next morning we come back, grab the part, get it installed, and call it an early day as we make our final departure from this strange and terrifying place. As a kid, I never explored any more of the forest navel than was absolutely necessary. I was terrified of the beady long legs, terrified of the puff stool, and terrified of all the hazards in this area. Looking back now, I think I had good reason to be afraid. This is where the game stops pulling any punches and throws you fully into the wild and unforgiving world around you. If you're a new player, you'll probably be intimidated too. This place is eerie. The atmosphere, the music, the enemies, all of it is perfectly unnerving in a very Pikmin way, but it still feels oddly disconnected from every other area. That aside, as an adult, I have a love-hate relationship with the Forest Navel. It's always satisfying to get through, and I love the creepiness of it and the varied challenges it throws at you, but I also dread the Forest Navel every time I play Pikmin 1. Now, we may be done with the Forest Navel, but look at that timestamp down there. I am far from shutting up today. And if you're enjoying my stuff so far, consider hitting that subscribe button for me. It would genuinely mean a lot. Without further ado, let's head to the distant spring. From the dolphin, this looks like a perfect little oasis. There's clear water everywhere, much more colorful flora and fauna, and a less claustrophobic energy to it. Olimar sets off on his own to get a feel for the area, and we see an egg? Is that an egg in the distance? We get close, and this is definitely an egg. It doesn't seem to respond to Olimar, but maybe if we used a Pikmin, we could crack it open. We take only a few blue Pikmin to attack the egg and station our red Pikmin on the shore, just in case there's danger in that egg. Unfortunately, there was danger in that egg, and we see a horrifying, ethereal abomination heading right for us and our base. Its glowing red eyes making our blood run cold and our palms sweat as it closes in. It sets itself right below one of our onions, and to our horror, any Pikmin caught in its cloud-like body just simply cease to exist, perishing on contact. We begin to panic and desperately throw our Pikmin at its face. Thankfully, this tactic seems to damage it, but this is going to be a truly difficult fight. The sanctity of our base camp has been defiled for the first time ever, and by this demonic presence no less. Olimar begins to question, is anywhere actually safe on PNF 404? With good positioning and aim, we manage to vanquish this crawling horror, and hopefully we never have to see one again. Olimar dubs this creature the Smoky Prog, and we feel very suddenly humbled by this planet. We recover the orb that the Smoky Prog dropped, and it drastically increases our Pikmin numbers. At the very least, our army is doing well. Our rude welcome party concluded, we head towards the water nearby with our blue Pikmin. Here we encounter a more colorful version of the Wallyhop we encountered in the Forest Navel, though this time we hit hard and fast, and it perishes before it can even counterattack. We sweep the area of Wallyhops, albeit losing more than a few Pikmin to their belly flops. Continuing to explore the water, we come across these lifeforms that resemble small aquatic bulborbs. Olimar names them water dumples and theorizes that they are actually a part of the grub dog family. They're definitely aggressive and make an immediate move to eat our beloved Pikmin. Thankfully, it's not much of a threat thanks to our numbers and quickly becomes fodder for our leafy companions. The larger group of them we encounter a moment later, however, does manage to devour some Pikmin. We also get an eyeful of this horrid-looking floating creature that we name the Puffy Blowhog. It also falls quickly to our Pikmin though. By this point, neither us nor Olimar are willing to take any chances, and start every encounter with a one-strike, one-kill mentality that so far is benefiting us in the distant spring. As luck would have it, that Puffy Blowhog was also in possession of a ship part. We can now reclaim our interstellar radio, important both for broadcasting an SOS and for preserving Olimar's sanity, as he can at least hear the voices of other spacefaring travelers. As Olimar guides the Pikmin back to base with our spoils, we encounter another Puffy Blowhog that tries to send our Pikmin flying with its strong breath, though thankfully it's easily distracted by Olimar, who is unharmed by its gusts. More importantly, we see another new member of the grub dog family slumbering nearby. Olimar dubs it a spotty bulbear, noting that it looks far more vicious than a normal bulborb. They've not noticed us or our Pikmin as they retrieve bodies from the water, so we decide to keep it that way for the moment. With the radio reinstalled, we turn our attention to dealing with this rather obnoxious Puffy Blowhog. With that taken care of, we turn our attention to plucking our fresh Pikmin and continuing to collect the bodies left behind by our plant-powered pillaging. We spy a ship part past a sleeping bulbear, so we naturally rush the bulbear, and it falls before it can do anything in retaliation. Our reward is Olimar's massage machine. Well, as someone with a weird spine, I guess I get why it's essential. Unfortunately, our blue Pikmin can't transport this through water. And with not enough time left to build this bridge, we must wait until tomorrow to retrieve that part. Hopefully Olimar's back can last just one more night. So it goes without saying, but I don't ever recall encountering the Smoky Prog as a kid. Which is probably for the best, because even as a Pikmin experienced adult, the Smoky Prog is terrifying in this game. It's the only enemy that makes a point of heading straight for what's supposed to be your safe area. Your sanctuary that, until now, has given you an almost guaranteed safe place, is suddenly transformed into the location of a brutal battle for survival. Even now, there's been playthroughs where I made one mistake or just got unlucky and lost triple digits worth of Pikmin. Overall, this may be my second favorite area in the game, ethereal horrors notwithstanding. The scenery is just so pleasant and varied enough that it feels like a truly unique habitat. It being the largest area in the game also helps with that feeling of exploration and discovery. Even the music is spot on. It's an almost meditative track, similar to the title screen. That's a stark contrast to the kind of struggles you'll face here. It introduces the most challenging encounters and puzzles in the game. Final trial excluded, but that's for the final video. The enemies, the environment, it's all ramped up to 10, but it doesn't feel that intimidating or oppressive. And I, for one, really love the optional stress of the Smoky Prog. Both a reward and a punishment for players that are fast enough to see it. Maybe that's the Dark Souls player in me talking though. There is one very irritating thing we've encountered already here. And that's that for some reason that's not explained, some ship parts just can't be taken through water and require a bridge instead. This doesn't feel like it was an intentional choice, since there are other parts that your blue Pikmin can take through water just fine. This feels like an oversight, or maybe a way of forcing the player to experience parts of the level design. Like, it's almost as if they designed some of these bridges and then realized after that the blue Pikmin could just negate it. Alternatively, it's entirely possible none of it was intentional, and it's just a result of very strange pathing on the Pikmin's part that they couldn't find a good way around in time. Much like all my other complaints, this isn't major by any means, just more of a minor annoyance. We've got plenty of time left at the distant spring though. A new dawn breaks in the distant spring, and with it comes new challenges for us. Thanks to our radar, we spy a ship part in some ruined structures by the water. Olimar gathers up our blue Pikmin and we set off for the day. After briefly assessing the situation, it's clear our part is on a higher ledge, one that looks to be connected to this walled off area. With some careful maneuvering, we get our Pikmin up and around and we can retrieve the repair type bolt. Olimar tells us it's an automated system that can repair almost anything in the ship if needed. Maybe not as important for takeoff, but certainly essential for efficient travel. This part, it appears, can be transported through water, so after a short trip, we have our repair type bolt reinstalled. We gather up our blues, head back to Olimar's massager, and after dealing with some shearwigs, we get that bridge built. Olimar's massager is on its way back to the ship, and tonight his aching body will get some much needed relief. We keep our blues out and decide to gather some more water-locked ship parts. A few bullbears sleep in our path, but Olimar is used to combat now, and they're defeated without too much incident. We do encounter an annoyance, though. This flying insect has a tendency of swooping down to grab our Pikmin, flying off to replant them elsewhere. We gather some of the scattered Pikmin, name this annoyance a swooping snitch bug, and resume our planned route. We get the Pikmin building a bridge as Olimar distracts the nearby yellow Wallyhop. With one side done, we lead our Pikmin to the other, deal with a family of shearwigs, and get to building. Before we can finish, however, that yellow Wallyhop decides it can ignore us no longer. We lure it to better footing, and our poor planning costs us almost half our Pikmin. That Wallyhop easily took out so many of our Pikmin. Despite the somber sacrifice, we find our gluon drive, which is yet another ship part that Olimar has no real understanding of. With the part on its way back, we consult the radar and plan out our next move. We set back off with our blue Pikmin in the hopes of clearing the water of ship parts first. There's something to take care of though. Us, Olimar, and the Pikmin have all had enough of this snitch bug. It gets taken down with extreme prejudice, and we feel a sense of satisfaction now that we've made the rest of our day here far less obnoxious. Sadly, it doesn't look like we'll be able to grab another part today, as our path was blocked by a stone wall. We can, however, gather some much needed fodder for our yellow Pikmin before we take off for the night. I don't have that much to say about our second day in the distant spring, sadly. We can definitely talk about that Wally-hop though. This moment right here really reinforces the fact we talked about in the last video. The fact that we are incredibly fragile, and one misstep with even a small enemy can cost us dearly. All it takes is getting a little too cocky, and even an experienced player can have their numbers halved in an instant. We've plenty more mayhem ahead of us too. Setting down for another day at the distant spring, and we know straight away that bomb rocks are on today's schedule. So after gathering some yellows and a lot of blues, we set off in search of bomb rocks, finding them in the remains of some massive creature. We tried to take down that stone wall from last night, but we don't seem to have enough bomb rocks. Finding more bomb rocks now takes priority for us if we want to take that route. Olimar recalls more bomb rocks and more remains where we found his massager before, so with some sneaking, we have plenty of bombs for whatever might come our way. Now that the wall's out of the way, we can continue on, and much to our annoyance and dread, we find another snitch bug and a few more Wally-hops. The snitch bug is taken out fast. The Wally-hops, though, will require some strategy. We sort our Pikmin and set off for battle with our amphibious antagonist. Both are taken out quick and clean, and Olimar can set our blue Pikmin's sights on this bramble wall. Olimar sets off on his own to get a lay of the land and returns just in time to see the bramble get cleared. Behind the wall, we find the zirconium rotor, a ship part that Olimar suspects he was overcharged for the installation of. We send a group of blues off with the rotor and turn our attention to a black bramble wall behind us. Given our surplus of bomb rocks, we make use of a few to save some time and blow up the bramble blocking our path. After reuniting with our forces, we take our blues and venture farther into the water. Another part is quickly spotted in a small recess of land, and it's revealed to be Olimar's pilot's seat. We have to imagine that without this, piloting every day has been uncomfortable to say the least. With that on its way to the ship, we reunite with our bomb rock toting yellow Pikmin and take only those few with us. Another bramble wall is taken down. Olimar makes a lap around to complete our understanding of the layout of the area, and we return to base. With time running out for today, it's best that we open any paths we can for tomorrow's expedition. We deal with a small family of shearwigs, throw our Pikmin up this ledge, and our path up gets completed just in time for another sunset on PNF 404. With another day at the distant spring, we check Olimar's radar and realize just how close we are to our goal. Only 5 parts remain missing, and 4 of them are right here in the distant spring. This means Olimar's return home is approaching rapidly. With this hopeful sentiment in hand, we summon our party of Pikmin, take the yellows to retrieve some bombs, and open up the last shortcut to our base. After retrieving the rest of our Pikmin, it's time to clear out the nearby bullbears, since a shortcut is only useful if you don't get eaten while using it. We start the battle strong, but a passing puffy blowhog causes tragedy. It scatters our Pikmin all over, allowing the bullbear to swallow a massive mouthful of them before it perishes. It's tricky to fight one near water, but the blowhog also dies, and we must now replenish our party. A fresh squad of Pikmin with us, we set out to clear the rest of our new shortcut. With that done, we take our reds up that bridge from last night and face down another armored cannon beetle. We have less Pikmin than our last encounter with one, but it falls almost instantly to our grizzled and experienced Olimar. As it dies, the beetle drops the bowsprit of the SS Dolphin. With this recovered, much more of the Dolphin's sleek exterior will be restored. We leave the ship part in the capable hands of our red Pikmin and take our blues to the pond nearby. With some quick problem solving, Olimar throws our Pikmin up this ledge, geysers himself up, and gets enough Pikmin over the gap to bring down that part. It turns out to be our second Ionium jet. We need to move though, as the nearby water dumples have noticed us and are heading our way. Thankfully, our Pikmin carry the part fast, and we get it out of the pond and back to the Dolphin. After reorganizing our party a bit, we head for a nearby ship part that rests high on the ruined remains of this strange structure. It seems this one will require some finesse and clever thinking. Olimar throws up our yellow Pikmin and begins his attempt at guiding them over this narrow path. The ship part we see is the UV lamp, which is a handheld light that Olimar evidently has a habit of looking directly into. After some precise guidance, we have the UV lamp heading to base. The end of our journey is fully in sight now. With only one part remaining here and the sun getting low in the sky, we gather some enemy bodies and leave our final part for tomorrow morning. Again, not too much to say for our 4th day in the distant spring, though we do see a little more of the puzzle-oriented gameplay that I wish we got more of at a higher quality. I call it a puzzle, but it's not really much of one. It's not difficult enough to be called a puzzle. It's more of a fight between you and the bad pathing of the Pikmin and your control of them. Other than that, there's nothing new here, but we have one short day left, and it has my favorite puzzle of the whole game. Our final day here at the spring begins, and brings with it a uniquely heartbreaking scene. It appears that the offspring of the bullbears we killed are now here, and desperately confused about where their parents are. Sadly, they're still hostile, and we need them gone. Once the dwarf bullbears and a puffy blowhog are dealt with, our path to the final part is open. Spying a yellow flower on the platform above, Olimar throws our Pikmin up and geysers up himself. Upon us throwing blue Pikmin into its beautiful petals, it closes up and spits out yellow Pikmin seeds. These yellows will be vital to getting down the ship part perched a bit away. Thanks to how aerodynamic the yellows are, Olimar is able to throw them to the shore nearby and get them up to that part. Olimar informs us it's the Chronos Reactor, a bizarre and barely understood machine that can warp the space-time continuum and convert it into energy. We don't have enough blue Pikmin with us to get it back, but we do have a blue flower nearby that Olimar assumes functions the same as the yellow one. As we watch it convert yellow to blue, it's decided we'll call these flowers Candy Pop Buds. With that on its way to the ship, that's it. That's the last part here. That leaves only one more part in total before the dolphin is fully repaired. Olimar's journey is just about over, and though it's been a long and brutal adventure, we can't help but feel anxious about actually leaving PNF 404 behind. Only one more area remains. With the distant spring done, let's talk about it a little bit more before we end off. First, the dwarf bullbears genuinely break my heart, and I see their faces when I fall asleep. Seriously though, the small touches here do so much for making this world feel real. Once it's past day 15, those bullbear babies will start spawning here. If their parents are still around, you'll see them wandering around with them or foraging next to their sleeping parent. If you get rid of the bullbears like I did, you'll see the children gathered in circles where their parents would be, crying out and sniffing around, desperate to find their parent. Even being as desensitized to the emotional pulls of Pikmin 1 as I am, I still have to fight to not cry when I see this. It's so effective. The thing I want to end with is this puzzle. It's such a unique one, and the only one in the entire game that requires thoughtful use of candy pop buds. I wish so much that there was more of this in the first game. Or do I? While I love that mechanical choice, it also feels very artificial. Most of the other environmental touches and puzzles feel at least somewhat organic, like it could happen in nature. This feels like it was designed. The single raised platform with just the right color of flower on it, just the right distance away from the other shore to throw your Pikmin to it, with that shore having just the right flower you need to get your Pikmin and the part back. This feels kind of empty and artificial. I love the concept, and I love that they thought about how to use these mechanics in a puzzle, but the way it was executed is one of the most frustrating things in this game for me. It was so close. If a little more time had been given for making this little bit feel more natural, it would have been fantastic. The design here works too. It feels like we're platforming on structures in a human's garden or something. I'm not sure how to put into words what I would have done differently had I been in the developer's shoes, and just like before, this isn't a massive problem by any means. It's just one puzzle, and it's just a brief, mediocre lull in an otherwise excellent experience. The Distant Spring is a really satisfying area and makes for an excellent semi-final area. Every mechanic and tactic you've learned is used here, and your skills are properly tested with a huge variety of enemies, hazards, and challenges. It gives us the nightmare-fueled adrenaline high of fighting the Smoky Prog. It lets us experience a non-lethal but still irritating encounter with the Snitch Bug, and it gives us the Spotty Bullbear. How can you not love this design? Plus, like, got them lips on it. This area is, I'd say, my second favorite. Even just on vibes alone, it would still take second for me. More importantly though, we're not just near the end of our journey with Olimar. We're almost at the end of our journey together through Pikmin 1. We still have one really big and really scary hurdle left before I get all emotional though.
Well, here we are.
Our journey across PNF 404 alongside Olimar and the Pikmin is at its end. We've gathered every ship part but one, and that one is on the other side of this small clearing that Olimar has aptly called the final trial. Time to set down and get to work. Looking a little ahead, it appears this truly will be a trial for us. There's fire, water, stone walls, and high ledges. This is what all of our now polished skills have been polished for. One final push. Olimar summons a well-balanced party of Pikmin and splits them up. Since we see an unbuilt bridge that the other Pikmin will need, blues are up first. We take them over and get them on building. Yellows are next. We'll be needing bombs, and there's a pipe up on a ledge over the water that looks flush with them. With a steady aim and a strong arm, Olimar recovers those bombs, and we return our yellows to the group to take down that stone wall. Now that that's out of our path, everyone except reds are on bridge building duty. Time for the red Pikmin to shine. This walkway is raised, narrow, and lined with fire-spewing geysers. On the other side is the final major roadblock to our path. With that moved, there's only a white bramble wall ahead, and that's taken care of in seconds. Ahead of us lies an empty, circular area with a bramble wall on the far side, and according to our radar, our final part is right here, right where some mysterious plant life is growing. At this point, both us and Olimar aren't naive enough to believe for a second that it's safe in there. We take ourselves back to base, replace all of our blues with reds, and get fully stocked with bomb rocks. We have a strategy in mind, and despite how inhumane it is, Olimar is too close to freedom to take any chances now. We will have to sacrifice a few yellow Pikmin. We position yellow Pikmin holding bomb rocks all over the area and approach the plant. The ground shakes violently, and a massive, well-armored grub dog bursts from the sandy ground. It's huge, slobbery, and grotesque in appearance, and its long, sticky tongue has a massive range to devour our Pikmin with. This will work to our advantage though. Olimar lures the beast near our stationed yellows and fools it into gobbling up the yellow and the bomb rock it held. The bomb rock goes off inside of the creature, leaving it vulnerable for a few precious moments. Its body is near invincible, but its face is tender and soft, a perfect target for our red Pikmin. The battle is long and hard, luring the grub dog into eating more bombs, attacking its face, retreating, and repeating that cycle. A wrench does get thrown into our plan though, when our enemy begins jumping high in the air, aiming to crush us and our Pikmin. It takes almost the entire day, locked in desperate combat, but this behemoth is killed. It drops our final part and its body is swallowed by the very sand it once hid in to ambush its own prey. The final part is back, Olimar's secret safe, filled with his life savings. He mentions shopping for some souvenirs for his wife and kids on his way home, and our Pikmin start to haul it back. This is it. The end. Us and Olimar make our way back to the ship behind the Pikmin, and a barrage of emotions hit us. We take a last look around. We take a few more deep breaths. We listen to the sounds of PNF 404 one last time. The part that hits Olimar the hardest is the realization that the Pikmin he's come to know, the Pikmin he's come to love and struggle alongside, they won't be coming with him. Our dear friends and stalwart soldiers will need to stay here where they belong. They bid us farewell in a heartwarming display. As we take off, our hope for the Pikmin is given new life. We look down and we see them organizing and attacking a passing bulb orb. We may have forever altered this ecosystem's balance, but at least our friends will carry on strong without us there. As we leave orbit, we see behind us Pikmin's onions of countless colors, almost as if they've all come to see Olimar off. We take one last look back at PNF 404 and begin the journey home.
So we take off into space, and in one of my favorite end screens in any video game ever, the credits roll over PNF 404 itself. A montage of Olimar's time here plays on the dark side of the planet, and a fantastic end theme plays over it. Genuinely, I love this credits roll, and that's an accomplishment. This last area is an accomplishment too. It's both final challenge and a reward. You can unlock this area by getting
all the other parts first, and it's so fitting. The central puzzle that requires all the Pikmin working together to create one path feels very satisfying to get through, and is a good way of showing the player how far they've come over the journey. The Emperor Bulblax is the final hurdle and the hardest fight in the game. The final trial is a final test of everything from puzzles to combat, and it is brilliant. Now, there's two ways to really go about that last fight. One is just running and throwing Pikmin at its face when there's an opening and chipping away at its health. This isn't great. It takes a long time, you risk losing all of your Pikmin with every evasion, and its health doesn't carry over to the next day, so you need to get this done now. The other way is bomb rocks. As you may have noticed, there is a metric ton of bomb rocks here, and if the Bulblax eats one, it blows up inside him and he's dazed for a few moments. So, if you're willing to hold back the tears, place your bomb rock holding yellows all over the arena and bait Bulblax into eating them one by one, you can clear this fairly quickly and don't risk as many Pikmin. I feel so guilty every single time. I hope they forgive me. We also have some great music here. It might be my favorite, actually. Not necessarily in the sense that I listen to it in isolation, but it is perfect for the area. It's strangely upbeat and hopeful, but something's off with it. There's this looming and discordant undertone that occasionally swells into intense and imposing territory before calming back down to its eerie happiness. And the boss music itself is great too. It's predominantly organs and it's extremely oppressive. It feels dire and epic, like this is a truly final battle between an unstoppable force and an immovable object. And after the credits finish rolling, we get to see a bestiary roll of all the flora and fauna, even if you didn't encounter all of them. It is fascinating to watch this now, with the Piccolopedia existing in all its forms, and actually talking about all of this feels strange now that we have Pikmin 4. Regardless, we finished Pikmin 1. I'm so glad you joined me on this journey through one of my favorite games, and I hope you'll stick around for the adventures to come. If you're still watching by this point, I'm overjoyed that you like my content. Consider giving me a like and a subscribe. Other ways to support include Patreon and Ko-fi, and links are in the description for those. I'd like to thank all my Patreon supporters for encouraging me to chase my passion, and thank you all for watching. So, until next time, now and forever, I love you all.